26 years ago, Nickelodeon aired its first 3 original animated series, starting a long and successful franchise of shows known as Nicktoons. Some Nicktoons were revolutionary and some were not. I'm John from Highscore Headquarters, and these are our top 10 Nicktoons. Number 10, The Adventures of Jimmy Neutron, Boy Genius. Based on the Academy Award-nominated film Jimmy Neutron, Boy Genius, this series brought Nicktoons into a different dimension, literally, as it was the first computer-generated Nicktoon and one of the first computer-generated series ever. It wasn't just memorable for how it looked though, being a smart and funny show in its own right. It even spawned a spin-off series, Planet Sheen, which is all that needs to be said about that. Number 9, SpongeBob SquarePants. The longest-running cartoon on Nickelodeon has gifted us with a treasure trove of memes and unforgettable quotes. The series has won 2 Emmys during its lifetime and has had 2 theatrical films released as well as 2 television films. Though not as good as it was at its height, SpongeBob retains enough of the undersea wackiness that made millions fall in love with it. Number 8, KaBlam. A place where the weirdest, most experimental animated shorts could find a home. The only constants in KaBlam were hosts Henry and June and a feeling that anything could happen. Some of the shorts that aired on KaBlam developed fan bases of their own, most famously Action League Now, which was about crime-fighting action figures that spun off into its own 12-episode series in 2001. Number 7, Danny Phantom. From the people who brought you The Fairly Odd Parents, this show is about a teenage boy named Danny who was turned half-ghost due to an accident. Gaining abilities in the process, he uses his powers to find and stop the supernatural threats to his city. Danny Phantom was fun, action-packed, and surprisingly deep, and that's why it's one of our favorites to this day. Number 6, Rockos Modern Life. 2 years after the first batch of Nicktoons premiered, a show about a talking wallaby and his friends delighted and perplexed audiences everywhere. Though Rockos Modern Life was successful in its own right, people that worked on the show went on to find success with their own cartoons like SpongeBob and Phineas and Ferb, making this arguably one of the most influential Nicktoons. Number 5, Rugrats. Easily the most successful of the original 3 Nicktoons, this series follows a group of toddlers and shows us their day-to-day lives, as well as their many fantasies. Inspiring 3 films and earning its own star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, Rugrats was the first juggernaut of the Nicktoons era and held the title of the longest-running Nicktoon until it would go on to be surpassed by SpongeBob and the Fairly Odd Parents. Number 4, Hey Arnold. How did a simple slice of life show manage to stand out in an animated lineup that included talking animals and babies? By not trying to be anything other than what it was. Clever writing and a crop of memorable characters didn't hurt, and we'll get to see all of that again when Hey Arnold returns later this year for the Jungle Movie. Number 3, Ren and Stimpy. John Crickfalusi's show about an asthma-hound chihuahua and his idiot cat friend inspired a generation of animators and changed the landscape. Without Ren and Stimpy's success, shows like Rockos Modern Life and SpongeBob SquarePants might not even have existed. Ren and Stimpy's ability to blend subversive adult humor with juvenile gross-out gags made for an endlessly entertaining and unique show that helped to define what would come after it in the Nicktoons era. Number 2, Avatar: The Last Airbender. A coming-of-age story like none that had graced children's television before it, Avatar: The Last Airbender is not only one of the most critically acclaimed Nicktoons, but one of the most critically acclaimed cartoons, period. It's set in a world divided into 4 factions, each of which has citizens that can manipulate or bend certain elements. The show's main character, Aang, is the Avatar, who can bend all 4 elements. Despite being just a child, he's the only person who can end a war between the Fire Nation and the rest of the world. It has excellent writing and an art style that takes the best from Asian animation to create a show that looks and feels like no other Nicktoon before it. Even though the series ended, the intricate world it created has been brought back, first through comic books, then through the sequel series, The Legend of Korra. Here's hoping we see more of it again. Before we get to number 1, here are a few honorable mentions. The Legend of Korra, Rocket Power, Cat Dog, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and finally, the number 1 Nicktoon of all time, Invader Zim. Despite only being on Nick's main channel for 2 years, Invader Zim has one of the largest fan bases of any Nicktoon, and it's easy to understand why. Jonan Vasquez's show about an alien who is sent to conquer Earth, but is thankfully too bad at it to succeed, specializes in a brand of dark comedy so dark that it can sometimes be questioned whether it was intended for kids at all. What can't be questioned though is that it was one of the funniest and most inventive shows on television during its brief but memorable run. It always found new ways to surprise and disturb viewers, and despite the cynical reality it existed in, it was always a joy to watch. Invader Zim was not just one of Nickelodeon's biggest cult classics, but it is a classic in every sense of the word. Thanks for watching. Did you like our list? Be sure to let us know by liking this video and commenting on what your favorite Nicktoon is. Also, if you'd like to see more lists like this, be sure to follow us on Twitter at Highscore HQ for the latest updates. I'm John from Highscore Headquarters, and we'll see you next time.